What Once Was Mine, Chapter 28, Captain Trezberg. The usually unflappable, knife-keen mind of the captain of the guard was at this moment out in a field, racing with ponies. All right, not ponies, Tolori, the beautiful breed of horse that could be found only in this kingdom, descended from ancient eastern lineages. They were a white so brilliant that they shone like angels in the sunlight, and while their legs weren't long and slender like those of Arabians or the racing breeds, they were incredibly muscular and powerful. They were meant for war, and long distances, and bearing stalwart riders along with their armor. Of course, there were no knights any more, but the finest Tolori became the steeds of the royal guard. Tresburg's own was a lovely, huge mare without a spot of black on her, except for her eyelashes, which were expressive in charcoal. He wished he were riding her right then. Pounding through the field of summer grass, pollen from the pines, and fluffy sea pods flying up like snow behind them, leaping over sparkling streams filled with fish. "Sir?" The guard in front of him was not his right-hand man. That lieutenant was overseeing the charge of watch this morning. With strange activity in the lands around the kingdom and the unsettling presence of foreign soldiers, Trezberg had decided that the public would be reassured to see the capable, dashing young man organizing the maneuvers. But that lieutenant would have been where the captain's eye was just then and now, immediately where his thoughts were as well. And then waited before interrupting. "Just trying to get all this straight in my mind," Trezberg said, focusing again. This was his one weakness: horses. Even during training, his eyes always wandered to them, but there were worse things to be preoccupied with. He neither drank too much nor consorted with women, so horses were all right, he supposed. "I was just wondering, Captain, do you think Samhet's men were lying? Do you think they were responsible for the destruction of the Snuggly Duckling?" "Let's get one thing clear," Trezberg said, gray eyes getting hard and cold. "I do not mind in the least that the Snuggly Duckling is gone. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. A sweep of that place any day or night would have filled our jail cells to a capacity with verifiable criminals. Good riddance, I say. That being said, it is extremely unusual for anything at all should have happened to that place. It is a favorite watering hole for malefactors of all kinds. No one would dare touch it, or the owner, for fear of retribution from the most violent and sadistic thugs in the realm. Why, old rascal would walk through a graveyard at midnight wearing gold change, and no one would dare lay a hand on him." "Old Rasco, sir?" the guard asked in surprise. "You mean you know the proprietor? It was a long time ago. The point is, whoever did it doesn't worry about their personal health and safety. They feel untouchable. And that can only mean two things: arrogance bordering on psychosis and power. Baron Semhet is a terrible person, and he knows just how weak he is militarily. One or two well-trained mercenaries could get to him quite easily. So while it is very suspicious that some of Samhet's just happen to be, let's us not say invading, for that would indeed beget an international incident, but crossing our border without permission, I do not believe that they had anything to do with the incident at the Duckling. Also, a witness mentioned Verhounds, which means Lady Bathory, which is both psychotic and powerful. She is undoubtedly the perpetrator. However, the fact is that multiple foreign nobles are seeking something in our fair country. Something strange is afoot." "Perhaps they are chasing a terrible criminal from their own land, or the Bathories," the young man suggested quite reasonably. "Perhaps," Trezberg nodded, but his mind drifted again. He didn't think they were all after a criminal. He suspected it was an innocent girl. Well, a beautiful young woman, really, as comely as his niece Tasha, who was so clever with her loom and quick with her tongue. But this girl had extraordinary silver hair, a color so unusual the captain had seen it only once before in his long years in the guard, on a royal princess, a tiny baby, dead to the world. In fairy tales and myths, when children were given up because of a prophecy or because the family was starving, they did disappear into the world for a while, and then come back years later like a cicada, bringing the power of youth and unavoidable anger of the gods with them. Trezberg nodded to himself slightly, liking the way this sounded. He had been raised on myths and stories of the great Romans. He even aspired to a military career just like an ancient centurion. Although it might have been noticed that, lacking a formal education, he often mixed up Greek ancient legend with a real history. Yes, it made sense the girl was turning up now, from a mythic standpoint, but from a real-world standpoint, there were a lot of actual facts that didn't make sense. And whatever the story with the princess was, people were running rampant across his country, attacking his criminals, wandering his roads. I'll write up a full report of the incident myself. Dismissed. The young guard saluted crisply, spun, and marched out of the room. Trezberg found himself looking out the window again. Omitting potentially important details in a report was something he absolutely loathed. But far worse was the idea of telling the king and queen about their daughter's reappearance. No doubt they would be upset and overjoyed, and then probably go back to their vow to keep the kingdom safe from her. But maybe they wouldn't, and that would be hard too. Trezberg had seen the kingdom through rocky years as the stalwart, but grieving and somehow diminished royal pair tied to govern normally. The kingdom shouldn't be put through that again. He would wait to inform the king and queen until he had more information. He wondered if he did this out of cold rationality or weakness and fear. The captain gazed out the window at the pasture set aside for the castle's retired horses. Even the oldest ones were whinnying with the sheer joy of life on this clear, dry summer day. The sun must have been warm on their aching backs, their short graying coats. Not a bad way to spend their declining years, he mused. In a meadow sweet with wildflowers and good companions by your side for company. Horses had it so much easier than captains of the royal guard.